Hi, this is Charlotte Curtis, Head of Adult Services, and we've got a fabulous treat this morning. We've got local author Nettye Johnson. She's going to tell us about two books, cookbooks that she's written, and those cookbooks are available through your Livingston Parish Library. Her first book is Put Your Faith Where Your Fork Is, and the second book is the Veganish cookbook. So we're going to be talking about both of these in just a minute. But before we do, Nettye and I are sitting outside in the courtyard at the beautiful Denham Springs Walker branch of the library. Right now the weather's perfect. We want to let you all know that you're more than welcome when you come visit us. Bring a book, bring a magazine, come sit outside and enjoy this weather before it gets to be too hot, because we all know it's going to be blazing before long. But right now it's gorgeous, so come on out. By the way, you may notice this is rosemary at the Denham Springs Walker branch. We've got some herbs growing in flower beds. So please feel free when you come, especially if you're going to be checking out some cookbooks or the cookbook databases, grab a little rosemary to add to your recipe. Okay, hope you enjoy it. I am so glad you're here this morning, Nettye.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share about the books.
Well, I was delighted when Ann Gomez here called and said a new book has come out, and she told me how popular your last one had been when you put your faith where your fork is and did a program for us.
Yes, yes.
So I started off reading this one while I was waiting for your second book to come in. So can you tell me what made you think of Put Your Faith Where Your Fork Is? What was the idea behind this?
Well, I'm a health educator by profession, and it came about after just a lifelong journey of trying to find my own personal path to wellness. I have a lot of chronic disease in my family history.
Yes.
Hypertension, diabetes, the standards, the things that are so common in our culture today. And after my father, he passed away in his sleep when I was 17 years old.
Right.
And we were shocked as a family because we kept thinking, he wasn't sick. He didn't have cancer or what we thought was illness. And it was when I got in my 20s, I began to realize that we had normalized unhealth, that there were so many things that literally I thought that getting hypertension and diabetes was like gray hair. When you got to be a certain age, it just happened automatically. I had normalized so many things that were unhealthy. And when I started to get older and then have my own family, I wanted to look at what were some things that I could do that were not necessarily medication based, although sometimes medication is necessary, but what could I do in my lifestyle to prevent, to reverse, or to protect my health, to get rid of some of those conditions. So it was a very long thing. And honestly, I struggled for such a long time. I remember very clearly that one time I was just like, I'm tired. I had a heart condition I was diagnosed with, and I was tired of struggling with my weight. And I just said, I give up.
Right.
And I remember very clearly just a calm voice saying, don't struggle, surrender, and make it a God thing. I found how when I looked at things like my career, education, things with my family, how often I would take that and use my faith to give me the strength that I needed to do it. And I never did that with food. And so that marriage of taking fact from science basis, I have a technical background, so I have a very technical kind of mind. But when I would look at the science, and this is what science tells us about health, and then empowering that with biblical principles, it gave me the empowerment to put those things into place. And so that's what that first book does. It says it's science-based, faith-empowered approaches for healthy living. And so I take things that we know to be true, that science affirms, and then I marry it with biblical principles that can connect us to our why, so that we can take these things and make them not only applicable for short term, but livable for long term.
Well, let me ask a question. So I know that you're married, and I know that you've got kids.
Yes.
How did that go with the family?
With the changes in health?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was a journey. It wasn't like I kind of clicked and did something all at once. And I really do I migrate things in, honestly. At this point, if we were to talk about nutrition, I am a vegetarian. The taste for meat, it just left me after I did a Daniel fast maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And so I was like, well, okay, I'm going to honor this. But my husband and children, they're not. They eat meat, they love meat. But what I have done over the years is I have shifted the way that I cook and the way that my family eats from being so meat centric, which is how we typically eat. I mean, if you think about it, when we say, what did you have for dinner last night? The first thing we name is the meat.
Right.
And I often, use the example when you go to like Piccadilly or any restaurant, but Piccadilly is so interesting because it's a cafeteria style. Your meat portion is this big, and
Right.
then the vegetables are like this.
The little tiny cups.
So that doesn't really align with health, right? You can still have meat, but we need to have more vegetables, fruits, grains, those things that are more nutrient dense. And so what I do with my family is I just work more vegetables in. So they still eat meat. I mean, they still eat fried chicken, that kind of, I don't fry it, but we still have that. But what I've done is I've shifted our lifestyle and our focus. And it's so interesting. My kids, they're now 16 and 12, but even when they were like 7 and 8, they would say, where's the vegetables on the plate? Or if they sit and eat, they will eat the broccoli before they'll eat like a potato. They adjusted their taste because of exposure and having non-judgmental, just very light but consistent conversations about how we can take care of ourselves through what we eat. So it wasn't like a driving kind of thing. It was just a consistency with small changes that work into lifestyle. And I think that's a really important way to have change that is sustainable, not to try to do too much all at once. Small changes over a consistent period of time can build healthy habits.
I was fascinated looking at this, your latest book, Veganish.
Yes.
So tell us about this, because this has 150 different recipes in here.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by veganish?
So veganish is my view. Right now, veganism is very popular. We have these trends that tend to come in and out.
So just for the sake of the patrons.
Yes.
Define your terms.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what's the difference in being a vegan and a vegetarian?
That's a great point. And actually, I have in the book a whole chart that explains all of that. Vegans do not eat not only animals, but they also do not eat animal byproducts.
Really?
So, yes. So a vegan would not eat anything that has honey in it because honey comes from a bee.
No way.
Right. Yeah. A vegan will look at, and if they're like strictly vegan, they look at ingredients. You may have a soup that's a potato soup, but it may
Right.
have chicken broth in it.
Right.
So a vegan would not eat that. Vegans do not do things that gelatin often is made from animals, from parts of animals.
Right.
So they're very conscious that they don't have animal byproducts. That means no eggs. That means no dairy products, no cheese. So vegans are strictly fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains. It's that. It's just
Got it.
total plant-based. It is a very restrictive way of eating. And while there are some health benefits for many people, it is not livable or sustainable. And just because you're vegan doesn't mean you're healthy, because Oreos are vegan, right? You can take...
Oh, wait. Yeah, of course.
I mean, think about it. French fries are vegan. But if I eat French fries all day, you know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean better for you. It's just a restriction of an entire food group. Registered dietitians often caution people when you take out entire food groups. And because I'm a health educator and I'm trying to help general populations,
Yes.
individuals, but populations towards better health, I'm looking for things that can give benefit, but also are livable. So for many people, veganism is not livable. It's
No.
not maintainable, and they're not necessarily going to put in the effort to make sure they're getting adequate protein, adequate omega-3s, some of the things that we typically get from meat. So what I say is that while everybody might not necessarily want to be vegan, everybody can be veganish. My definition of veganish is not plant exclusive, but plant forward, which means that when you're looking at your plate, there's a whole lot more vegetables, fruits, grains, nuts than there is meat, right? is helping us to get closer to the USDA guidelines that says, more than half, 2/3 or 3/4 of your plate should have that. And so that's what I'm encouraging people to do with the recipes in here. It's a philosophy and just trying to shift some of our standard American diet from being so meat centric to being plant centric. But I don't necessarily advise that everyone is plant exclusive. You don't have to be exclusive to just have it be in the forefront.
So you call it vegan-ish because the goal is just incorporate more vegetables and fruits
Yes.
and seeds into your diet.
Yes.
I was looking at the section here on fast breakfast,
Yes.
and that looks really good. But it says greens for breakfast. I love the picture here.
Yeah. I often will have greens when I cook breakfast. And people don't often think about it, but it's literally, and it doesn't take much time. In that particular example, I just sauteed up a little bit of spinach and mushrooms, and I used that instead of what would typically be bacon and sausage. And on that particular one, that one's vegetarian because I used scrambled eggs, but you could scramble tofu if you wanted to not do the eggs, and a really good whole grain bread with drizzled a little bit of molasses. That is a delicious, delicious meal.
Okay, I saw you had that, and of course, oatmeal.
Oh my gosh. Well, we know that oatmeal is good for our heart health, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes when we do oatmeal, we pile in a lot of butter, we pile in a lot of sugar. One of the things that I really do focus on in both books, I talk about eating foods close to the way God put them here for us and training our taste buds to like natural foods. So instead of putting refined sugar, I tend to use natural fruits to give the sweetness. And you then get not only sweetness that's just bland, like with sugar, you get sweetness with flavor, with different, different high notes and that kinds of things. If you're using blueberries versus strawberries and that kind of sort of thing. I add in some nuts to give me a little bit of a healthy fat and some crunch. And it's just combining different ingredients in tasty ways so that we can train our bodies away from so much salt, sugar, and fat, which is very predominant in the standard American diet.
You're right. This one, the Veganish hearty plate.
Yeah. Now,
Again, under fast breakfast.
yeah, that's another breakfast example there. And in that example, the element that looks like meat is
Yes.
actually soy chorizo. It's
No
very
way.
commonly available in grocery stores, and it is flavorful, very flavorful. And the
It
greens,
looks just like sausage.
I know, and it's actually more flavorful than sausage. It has a more
Wow.
Mexican kind of flavoring to it. And the vegetables that are there are a bagged salad mix that instead of eating it raw, I saute it with a little bit of olive oil, garlic, and some Himalayan salt, and it softens down nicely, and it is wonderful paired with eggs and that chorizo.
I know that your children are older now, but how long have you been exposing them to this type of eating?
Well, the more plant forward probably started about 7 years ago when I made that shift. However, the healthy eating was from day one. Both of my babies were premature. They were 2-pounders.
No.
Yes. 2 pounds 4 ounces and 2 pounds 13 ounces. And so I was big on the health thing from the very beginning.
It had to be.
Yes, very much listening to my pediatrician, my doctor, and just how can I wanted them to, food is literally a building block for our body.
It is.
It literally is. And so I just really wanted to see how can I help them to develop a palate towards healthy foods. Now, they're kids. They get excited about Chick-fil-A and McDonald's, like any other child. However, they understand that that is a moderation and that is not a regular in our eating. And they understand the difference. And they actually have a taste for healthy foods because there's a biblical principle, and it's just the truth that what we feed grows, right? So the more that we eat unhealthy foods that are highly packed with added sugar, added fats, sodium, the more we eat that, the more our bodies will crave it. We are actually designed that, that repetition will drive urges. So the more you eat healthy foods, the more you desire those. I mean, think about it. Have you ever done something where you like limited salt just for whatever reason for a period,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then when you go back and you taste something that was normal for you, you get shocked. You're like, that is so salty.
Yes.
Because our taste buds will adjust. And that's good news for people that feel that they know that they need to make changes, but they don't know how. Small changes done consistently. If you just do something small over and over and over again, it will adjust. But when we try to do a whole lot and we fall off in 2 or 3 weeks, we're not giving our bodies the time to adjust to the changes and to acclimate and to enjoy them.
So, how long would it take your body to adjust?
So it's different for different people. Because and if you think about it, if I, for example, in my life, I had been eating, not so healthfully for 30 years. So I had 30 years worth of change. I personally can find that in 20, 21, 28 days, in about a month, my taste buds start to change depending upon how much I push towards the other direction. And I think that the key is to make the healthy things taste good. If you're just like, knuckling it, eating stuff that you don't really like, because
Boiled eggs.
it's not going to take. You're not going to acclimate that. Find healthier foods that you like. Search out healthy ways to make them, and that's what I really endeavored to do in the book. There are 150 recipes, but literally, if you notice, there are several blueprints in there. And if you use the blueprints and the variations that I gave, there are thousands, absolutely thousands of combinations of different ways that you can make things by just following a blueprint and then adjusting the ingredients towards what's available and what you like. And then you can just make some adjustments. Yes, indeed. Now, that is one of the most popular recipes in the cookbook, and that is one of my moderation. Now, it looks like fried catfish, right?
That's what I thought it was. I was looking at it.
It's fried cauliflower and mushrooms.
No way.
Yes. Those are
Wow.
there, and I use a variety of different
That looks
mushrooms.
amazing.
It is delicious. It is delicious, and you just put it in a nice seasoned like fish or shrimp fry. Fry it up very nicely. You can make yourself a little remoulade sauce on the side and enjoy that. And it can give you another way to get some more vegetables on your plate. Now, that is a mock chicken salad that is made. And it's a knockoff of a version that they sell at Whole Foods. I looked at the ingredients list, the one at Whole Foods,
I can do this.
and went in the kitchen and got to playing and figured out a version that came out pretty good. And it's very easy to make.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The photographs in here are just amazing. And I know that we were talking before we started filming, and you told me that you filmed all these fabulous food photos. How?
There are over 50 pictures in the cookbook, and almost all of them were taken with my cell phone. Cell phone cameras are amazing right now. And literally, I didn't intend to start off to do a cookbook more than 6 years ago, about 12 years ago, when I started on this healthy eating and I decided to make health education a career. I was just on a personal journey myself.
Right.
And every time I would, cook something, I would take a picture of it. My kids, they got to joking after a while. We would sit down and they were like, well, we know before we can eat, we have to say grace and mama has to take a picture. Like, don't touch the food. Mama's going to take this. And so I had hundreds and hundreds of pictures. And as the cell phone cameras got better, the pictures got better. I have a blog that has a couple hundred recipes up there. And people kept saying, you need to do a cookbook and put it together. The cookbook is not just a collection of recipes. The first 40 or 50 pages of it is information. It's resources, everything from how to buy vegetables more inexpensively, because a lot of times we hear that healthy eating is very expensive,
Right.
and I give you some tools to kind of shake that limiting belief. I give tips on how to wash produce, how to prep it and store it so it doesn't waste. You get very frustrated when you go and buy all of this great fresh stuff and you don't cook it and then it spoils. I have tools to help people with that. Things to help to make sure that you're getting enough protein as you are adding in more vegetables, because that's very important for our body. So it's meant to be a information resource in addition to a collection of recipes.
That was something that I found so interesting about your first book. Put your fork.
Faith
No,
where your
put your
fork is.
faith where your fork is.
Yes.
Because you start off with so much useful background information. So this book was written because people urged you to do it because they could see the change in you.
And I was also working, so to kind of, I had my personal journey, but my personal journey turned into a professional one.
Right.
Initially, I was in technology. I was a programmer,
Yes.
and then I was an IT trainer.
Right.
And when I went through my personal journey, honestly, I in my journey to kind of get more healthy and lose weight, I joined Weight Watchers, and I ended up working with them for a decade.
Right.
I was a national trainer for a while, and then I directed operations for the states of Texas and Oklahoma. And when I decided to come home, because my babies were so small and
Right.
I could not balance
No.
the travel and all of that, I couldn't sit still. And so what began to happen is I went back, I got a degree in health education, I went and got a bunch of certifications, and I did a lot of studying, because one of the things that I realized is that everybody is unique and we all have different paths. And I didn't want to be somebody that just, laser focused towards one direction or one way. I wanted to kind of help people to assess where they are and find their personal fit. So I felt like I needed to have a lot more information and knowledge in a lot of different types of ways. I wanted to make sure that I was helping people with actual information. And so part of me, I'm an educator by trade and by passion. And so all of the resources that I have are very high on the education, so that you can find your fit. Because if it isn't a fit for you, it's not going to be effective and it's not going to stick.
Do you think that's why most people don't succeed when they try to diet?
I believe that is a big part of it. You are so right. I think that we're trying to fit ourselves into some mode, whatever mode tends to be popular or we see other people doing or having success. And we really have to find our fit and make sure that your fit is, of course, healthy. But what works for me might not necessarily work for everyone else.
I like how you've adapted your concept to include your husband and your sons, so that you're making one meal and you add obviously the meat for them, but you're not partaking of that.
Yeah, and well, sometimes, honestly, sometimes I cook 2 meals, and I personally don't have a problem with that. I know for some people, they're like, I don't want to cook once. So the thought of cooking twice doesn't, but for me, cooking is a love language.
Me too.
And so I enjoy cooking for healthy things for them. But then a lot of times, because I'm always learning, a lot of times I'm experimenting for myself. And honestly, sometimes they wouldn't come out, and I'm trying new things. And so I didn't want to have them to, have
Be
to
the guinea pig.
Exactly. So I got very early on into the habit of, cooking something for me as I was doing some testing or trying things in the kitchen. And then once I got it down, then they would, join and eat those things as well.
I was fascinated looking through this at the variety of meals and recipes that you've got in here. And I'm putting you on the spot. What's your favorite?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Maybe your favorite 5 if you can't narrow it down to one.
Goodness gracious. So, okay, I really do like some of those breakfast items that you
Those look yummy.
Those plates are so filling, and I will eat them for dinner sometimes. I mean, they're just very easy. I think that several of the salads are my favorite as well. I feel like I could eat salad every day of the week. I just like it because it's so versatile. I mean, you can take it in a lot of different ways. One of the ones that I really like is the version of the 7-layer salad that is the old school one.
I saw that.
Yeah, my mom, that was the first dish that my mom would let me make when we were growing up, was I got to make on holidays the 7-layer salad, which is essentially you just pick 7 ingredients and you layer them in a pretty trifle bowl. And Mama would put mayonnaise across the top and then sprinkle with a little bit of sugar, a little bit of paprika. And of course, cheese was part of it. And so when I make that using veganish ingredients.
The recipe.
Yeah. When I switch that up, it just has so much memory and nostalgia with it. So that's one of my favorites as well. And then I think that I really do like the tomato soup that I have.
Tomato soup.
I love that one. And it doesn't have, it's creamy. But instead of croutons, I make little small grilled cheese croutons. So I make them. Oh, it is so good. So it's a tomato soup.
I'll be trying that one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites as well.
You mentioned memory in food, and those really are so closely linked.
Very much so. Very much so. And I am so, with the pandemic, there were so many horrible things that happened. And we also have to look at some of the good things that came from it. And to see how for many people reconnecting with family, spending more time with family, people rediscovering cooking.
Oh, yes.
Partially because we had to.
Yeah, because you couldn't get out.
Yeah, in the beginning. And I think that it is a very important time when we can connect with family, when we sit down and talk not only over a meal when we're eating, but when we're preparing a meal. And I encourage that so much in my work with families. There was recently a couple of years ago, actually, there was a study that Jamie Curtis, he's a chef, he reported, and he shared some very disheartening news about the majority of children, as he was going around, could not connect a French fry to a potato.
No.
Like they did not realize that if you held up a potato, that's where a French fry. We are so disconnected
From food.
From food. We're so
Wow.
disconnected. And so when I see parents, even if you're at a point where you're pouring something out of a box to make it, at least you're doing that with your children. You're involving them. But as we get closer, get more closer to natural foods, and you're involving your children in that, I think it's just a very beautiful thing with memories and lessons, and it's something that we need to do to get back to health, but to also get back to family and to get back to some of those connections that are so important.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because this summer we're going to be doing a cooking series, because one of the things that we have at your Livingston Parish Library are cookbooks. By the way, both of these can be checked out through your library.
Yay, thank you so much for
Well,
that.
they were so fantastic. I know I've enjoyed reading them. We also have, we call them culinary kits. So we have cake pans, we've got meatloaf pans, we've got lots of things that you can use in your kitchen, either for yourself or with your family. We also have a number of other cookbooks and databases. And so we're going to be doing a series during the summer where we are focusing on cooking, and I'd love to have you come back. Hopefully by that time we'll be a little more back to normal.
Yes.
So that we can talk with you again
That
about
would be
this.
that would be fantastic. And if you'd like to have some demos, I'd be more than happy to
Only
do
if
that.
you need somebody to eat them. So I know. I'd love to do that.
Can I just add, the library has been so pivotal in the health change in my life.
Really?
Yes. Because the library is more than a collection of books, but you also do have just really great books.
Yes.
And when it comes to how did I learn how to cook, I didn't go to school. I really didn't even know how to cook from growing up, although, because I was a younger child in the group and my older sisters did most of the cooking. When it came to learning to cook, I literally would come to the library and check out 4, 5, 6 cookbooks at a time. And I sat and would read them like textbooks and try different things. And now I do have a cookbook collection that my husband told me that I was getting towards hoarder status. And, he told me to pump the brakes.
Aren't we all?
But I just think that if I had only bought books and had not had the library as a resource, what I would have learned would have not has been as expansive.
Yes.
And so it's just been such a wonderful resource to come. Literally, I still come maybe once a month and come and see what you all have new. What's new out there, and to just take. And so the programs that you offer, as well as the resources, there's so much information, tools, and helps that are available to help us to find our fit, like I talked about before. They're here at the library, and you all have been very instrumental in my life and my kids as well.
Thank you.
Come often.
That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Because as she said, your Livingston Parish Library really is more than books. So this is Charlotte Curtis, Head of Adult Services. I've been sitting out here in our beautiful courtyard of the Denham Springs Walker branch. If you heard our neighbors next door, remember that's the branch that's across the street from the firehouse and next door to the vet. And obviously somebody was going in for a checkup. But if you would like to check out Nettye Johnson's books, we have them in the system. So just put in your request. I know you're going to enjoy them just as much as I did. All right. Thanks again for coming in, Nettye.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for all you do.
Great. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.